Good morning. Glad to see some of you all from Rico. Rico went a little late this morning, but that's okay. You know, Rico likes to talk, and when he goes off, he goes off. So glad you're all here today. I'm glad you can see me. I'm glad I can't see you. It's a joke. Sorry. I have bad humor sometimes. Actually, most of the time, you can ask my students. They don't really appreciate my humor. But that's okay. I appreciate that they attempt to laugh at my humor. If they don't laugh, they know they don't pass. So, hope you're all having a good day. Hope this week is going to be a good week for you all. Hopefully, my sound is good. I think I still hear the music in the background. Yes, I do. So someone give me the thumbs up, thumbs down for my microphone. You know, usually my microphone um, goes out, or I have the wrong mic on, whichever it is. Please let me know. I want to make sure you all can hear me. I want to say hello to all those who are here. My normal people, Lefty, Rico, Peplin, Nola, Scott, Liquid Zoo, hi Matt, Robert, Tennessee Aqua Hoosers, Lady Diane, Ben Backstrom, Scott's Aquatics, Jennifer Weaver, Lady Diane, Vinoski, S. Let's see, who else is here? S. Guess my grandson's not here today. If Jack, if you're here, just want to say hi. Thanks for showing up. Appreciate you coming. Appreciate you listening. And Jess, last of all, Jess, if you missed Jess's live stream this morning, we had a nice talk at the end about eating insects, and it was good. It was good chat. So, what I want to talk to you today about is what's happening in the Amazon. If if things go at the current rate, I'm not very optimistic about what's happening in the Amazon and about the future of the Amazon because it tends to be that money wins out. Conservation oftentimes takes a back seat to big business and big money making operations. And so we have to have a happy medium here to make sure the environment survives, make sure we're conserving the environment, and making sure that we allow the economies to work. So let's go at this. So Amazon Basin, may it rest in peace. Let's hope it does not have to come to that. So, as you all know, I am a Aquarius by heart. So this is my 500-gallon tank, the tank you saw in the opening with the discus. Now what it looks like, but when I first set it up, it was set up as a Tanganyikan tank with probably 100 different fish. After a couple of years, I got tired of it, so I kind of changed it. Here's my grandson, made him go in and, help me get all the rocks out. My big belly wouldn't allow me to fit above the top of the tank and the ceiling, so we stuck him in there. And so he helped me clean it out. He went to become a total not a guppy mosh pit, but it was a tetra mosh pit that was just it. It really didn't have any rhyme or reason to it. The tetras didn't school by themselves, in other words, in species specific schools, but just kind of one big conglomeration of tetras. Oh, so now this was supposed to be the video of the discus, but that's okay. So let's talk about some of the things that affect the Amazon, that are threats to the Amazon. The introduction of exotic species, we'll talk a little bit about this, but we know that that last week, that's what my live stream was on. There has been habitat loss and destruction. There is overexploitation of species stocks, whether it's for food fish or for aquarium species. And lastly, global climate change is affecting what's happening in the Amazon. So again, let's talk about invasive species. Oh, it's in Spanish. Very good. So this is from a talk I gave in Mexico. We know that in the African Rift Valley lakes, primarily Lake Victoria, 400 species of endemic cichlids. After they put in the Nile perch, they escaped the aquaculture cages, and the Nile perch then went in and decimated the African cichlid, the cichlid populations in Lake Victoria. Now we have about 10 species left. So it extirpated 90%, 95% of all the species that were in that lake. Now in Peru, in this part of Peru, Arapima farming is a big industry. There are probably 10 to 20 Arapima farms, aquaculture farms in and around the area. They are feeding these fish live food. One of them, or one species they're feeding is blue gourami. They're also feeding tilapia. And what happens is here is a typical pond that they farm and raise the Arapima on, all fine and dandy. And then they have barriers that prevent the fish from escaping the pond as the pond drains out. So there's a continually flushing of water through the pond, and it prevents the Arapima as well as other fish from escaping the pond. But the problem is that you can see there's a series of pipes on the pond. In the lower right-hand photo, you can see 2 PVC ponds. And what these are, they're overflow pipes. So when the rainy season hits, the ponds flood very rapidly. They fill up very rapidly, get to a point where the ponds go into a spillway. And it's at this time that all these fish that are in these ponds, the potential food fish for the Arapima, will be able to escape the pond. So this is how some of these invasive species are able to find their way out in the middle of the rainforest because they're coming from these Arapima ranches. Now, Brazil has also had problems with invasive species. They have invasive species from food aquaculture. They've had invasive species because of the aquarium trade, and as well as from sport fishing. And these are some of the fish that have been introduced into Brazil because of the aquarium trade. We have goldfish, various live bears, platies, swordtails, other cichlids. catfishes, corridors, catfish, and tetras from other parts of the Amazon, gouramis, anabantoid fishes like the gouramis and bettas, as well as barbs that have been brought in the aquarium trade. Most recently, they have found the genetically modified glowfish in some of the streams in Brazil as well. So it's not only Peru that has a problem with exotics, but Brazil also has a major problem with exotics. So again, we talked about exotics last time. That's all I wanted to mention about exotics this time. There has been major habitat loss and destruction throughout the Amazon. It's most apparent in Brazil, primarily because they're the largest portion of the Amazon basin resides in Brazil. This is the agriculture or the uses of the rainforest in Brazil. In other words, these are the industries that cause the most loss. 65 to 70% of the rainforest loss in Brazil is because of cattle ranching. 20 to 25 is from small scale agriculture. Only 5 to 10% is from large scale agriculture. And only 2 to 3% is from logging. We think that logging is the major impacts. No, logging, the cutting down the rainforest just for logging purposes takes very little out of the Amazon rainforest. But when they do clear the forest for cattle ranching or for agriculture, they then do utilize much of this wood for building materials. So because they're clearing so much rainforest for other reasons, they don't actually have to go in and clear cut for building purposes. This is the deforestation that's been going on in the Amazon from 1988 to 2015. You can see, well, you can't see because of my banner there. Let's take away the banner. So the largest, or the time where they had the largest amount of deforestation going on in Brazil was in the mid 90s, as well as 10 years later in the mid 2000s. But since then, deforestation has decreased, primarily because the forest that they're decreasing is further away from the large cities. So as you get further and further away, it's harder to go in and cut down that forest for whatever purpose you need the forest to be removed. In Peru, there is some illegal logging going on. So they cut down the trees, and what they do is they float them down to the lumber yards. So they bring them to the lumber yards. They cut up the wood into planks to whatever size they need. This is actually all the sawdust that is created by this one particular lumber yard. One of the problems that happens is during the rainy season, when this area floods, all that sawdust gets put into the river, and you have these large dead zones because of all that decomposition that occurs because of that massive amount of sawdust going into the river all at once. So in and around Iquitos, there are 3 major lumber yards that receive all the wood that go in and cut the large trees down to its proper size to be used for building material. Unfortunately, A few years ago, this was in 2017. 2017, some illegal loggers accidentally cut down the world's oldest tree in the Amazon forest. Whoopsie, they cut it down. Once it's cut down, is that it's dead. It can't be used for anything except building. So whether it was an accident or whether because it was the largest tree around, no one really knows. But they, were able to sell all that wood for a very good price. So whether it's the oldest, second oldest, third oldest, it doesn't matter to them, just as long as they can extract a fair amount of money from the wood. Now, none of the wood goes to waste. Even the smallest pieces of timber in most of the Amazon is utilized. Most people, especially in the surrounding areas, cook with charcoal. That is their medium of choice. They don't have electricity normally to their homes. Gas is expensive, so the cheapest route to go is to utilize charcoal. And so what they do is they take all these waste pieces of wood and they pile them up. So this pile is actually just completely piled up with small pieces of branches, small trunks, small parts that can't be used in the building process. At that point, what they do is they cover that wood pile with dirt and they light it on fire. And so what it does, it is an incomplete burn. It burns everything except the carbon that is left over. And that is what they call, and we call, charcoal. Now, our charcoal briquettes here in America are actually bits and pieces of natural carbon, but it's pressed in with coal. You can buy natural charcoal, wood charcoal in the stores, but in Peru, that's what they're going to use for cooking. They let it burn for a week or so. It doesn't create a fire, but it just smolders there. And then once you're done, what you have is pieces of charcoal that they sell by the 55 gallon or 55 pound sacks in the marketplace. You can also buy little individual sacks of carbon. But that is the cooking medium of choice for probably half of the population in and around Iquitos. Remember, Iquitos is a city of about 700,000 people, and so they go through a lot of charcoal in a given day. Another process that causes major habitat destruction in Peru and in the Amazon is the quest for gold. There is a lot of gold mining going on. It is a highly destructive activity. How they extract gold here is they take high pressure hoses and just hose down the banks of the rivers and hose down the banks around a small lake, creating massive amounts of siltation to the river and to these lakes. And here is just a typical area. It looks like a moonscape once once they're done with a given area looking for gold. This area here is an area around Madre del Dios in southern Peru. This is where many of the corridor species in Peru come from. This is a before picture, 2017, and this is 2 years later, 2019. That red circle indicates the amount of gold mining and amount of habitat destruction that goes on within just 2 years. Now, one of the problems with gold mining is not only the habitat destruction, but to extract the gold from the soil, they use mercury. And here's some guy, just putting mercury. They measure the amount of mercury they need with their palms. Then they put it in the gold pans, and then they swirl the dirt around with this mercury, and the mercury attaches to the small gold particles and concentrates them out, basically precipitates them out, and so they can then collect the gold. Now, one of the problems you have is gold, or the mercury, methyl mercury, is one of these heavy metals that can bioaccumulate in the environment. So bioaccumulation means that as you move up higher in the food web, you're going to concentrate more and more mercury. So the bacteria in the plants have a little bit of mercury. Those fish that eat the phytoplankton in the plants are going to concentrate more mercury. The fish that eat those fish are going to concentrate more mercury. The animals that eat the fish will concentrate even higher amount of mercury. And then ultimately it goes into humans, where we're going to have a lot of mercury concentrated in our bodies. So if you look at the amount of mercury that we see in the herbivores, omnivores, and carnivores, you can see that as we go up the food chain, we're going to have a higher concentration of mercury in their tissues. And this is the average level of mercury in Puerto Maldonado. This is in the Madre del Dios region. In all these various fishes, Boca Chica, the pacu, these are all the herbivorous fishes. As we move more to the left, we get into the carnivorous fishes. That dashed line is the limit of mercury that is allowed in fish food for most countries. So if it reaches an average of 0.03 parts per million or above that, that fish cannot be used as food fish. But that doesn't stop the people there. They have to live. They live off the land. They live off the rivers. And so they're still consuming the mercury. And this is the amount of mercury that's found in the people in the Puerto Maldonado region. The all adults average about 2.6 parts per million of mercury, methyl mercury, in their hair. The easy way to test for mercury is to look at the hair. In men, it's slightly lower. In women, it's slightly higher. But if you look at women of childbearing age, it's at 3 parts per million. The acceptable level is 1 part per million. And we know that mercury can have devastating effects on developing embryos. It causes a condition called Manimoto's disease, first described from infants in Japan, and it causes developmental problems, mental retardation, and other developmental problems that we see in children. Same thing is happening in the children in this part of Peru. They're showing slower development, more mental retardation, some of the other dramatic effects that we see from mercury poisoning. Now, Another problem that we're starting to see now in Peru, especially, is instances and major problems from the oil industry. A lot of oil in the Amazon, a lot of illegal oil drilling going on in the Amazon. In itself, it's not that bad. We only take a little bit of land for the oil drilling. But what's happening is that there's been a lot of oil spills in the surrounding areas around these oil drilling stations. Ponds are completely inundated with oil. There is some cleanup, but the cleanup is incomplete. And we know what happens when oil coats the surface. It causes, oxygen levels will decrease because there's oxygen cannot enter or escape the water since it's completely covered with oil, covers the organism, kills birds, the fish, everything. This has, gotten some press, some bad press for the oil industry in Peru. But normally, what happens is they just, pay off the villages, give them $100, make them go away, and $100 for many of these villagers is probably over a year's worth of salary. So they're hoping to buy their silence. Here in Peru, here's Peru here. This is, or to the right, that yellow area is Brazil. All the yellow to the left primarily is Peru. And you can see there is leased areas and unleased areas, but all these areas are potentially have very high oil reserves. And so there is a push in Peru to become oil dependent or oil independent. And so there is a lot of pushback by the government to some of these environmental groups who do not want to see any oil drilling taking place within the Amazon region of Peru. But for the most part, the conservationists, the environmentalists are losing out. But hopefully this will change. Another habitat destruction that's going on throughout the Amazon, and particularly in Brazil, is the building of dams. If we look at it, hydroelectrical production is a very clean. It's a very clean industry, but it does cause environmental problems. You're taking a river system and you're making it into a lake system behind the dam. So fishes that have evolved for a riverine system do not survive in a lake system. Rivers tend to be much higher in oxygen level, in some cases, warmer waters. If you build a lake, the lake's going to be deep. You're going to have lots of cold portions of that water. Those fish cannot survive there. It's going to be still water. Those fishes cannot survive in that still water. So you're completely changing the ecology, the ecosystem behind that dam. In front of the dam, or as you go through the dam, that environment is going to also change because it's not going to have a constant water supply going through. You're not going to get the normal flood dry pulses that you see, water is going to flow through that dam on demand. In other words, when you need lots of electricity, water is going to be flowing through that dam at a much higher rate than when you don't need that much electricity. So you don't get the normal flow regimes that you do under natural systems. Now, the most infamous of all the situations is in the Zinzu River of Brazil with the Belo Monte Dam and the Pimentel Dam. You can see the normal regime of the Zinzu River. By building the Pimentel Dam in the lower bottom of your photo, it's created this large lake behind that dam. The water then is diverted from that canal into an area of the Belo Monte Dam. It's an area that was rainforest before, so they flooded the rainforest. And what's left of the Zinzu River is very little. There is some water flow, but not like it was before. And so if we look at some of the fish that were found in that Zinzu River, these are Rheophilic fishes, Leperinus species, some of the peacock bass, pike cichlids, the plecos of the most famous of all is the zebra plecos. These are all fishes that needed fast flow to survive and to reproduce. Since it's not having fast flow anymore, these fish are disappearing. Now, one fish that has never gotten any press at all is this fish. This is a small killifish, Plesiolebius altamira, a beautiful little killifish that was found in the floodplain area of the Rio Zinzu. This fish is now extinct because the area in which this fish lived is totally dry. And so this is one of the examples that we know of fish that have gone extinct because of these dams. Who knows what other fish have gone extinct that have not even been described yet, or were not even described yet, that are now extinct. You know, I like killies. I have a few killies in my collection, but any non-killie person would love to have a fish this colorful at their home. You know, I know that's a bad thing to think about. You know, the species should survive for itself, but we can do a lot as home aquarists to keep species alive. And unfortunately, this is one species that never made it into the trade in order to be kept alive, to be kept from totally going extinct. Now, in 2018, Brazil did announce that it was going to end their mega dam building policy. This really never came about with President Belisario. Once he took over, he was more into money than he was into conserving the environment. You know, just a few years later, COVID hit, so all that went out the window. And so they are still in the process of building more dams. In Peru, fortunately, they haven't built many dams, but they do want to start building some larger dams in Peru to produce hydroelectric power for the country itself. But so far, dam building in Peru is very, very slow. So let's talk about overexploitation of species stocks. So I showed this photo last time showing what goes on in the aquarium trade. The same thing goes on in the food fish trade. Here is an Arapima, one of the most important food fishes in the Amazon, especially in Peru. This is what a natural Arapima would look like. They get up to about 10 feet long. They have been overfished. They are now fortunately produced in the millions on fish farms. So there's less a reliance on wild caught fish for food. But if you go into the food market, this is just one of the fish markets there. You can see all these fish that are food fish for these people, but we think of these as aquarium fish. Some of the shovel-nosed catfishes. Here is just one of the stalls that you see, all sorts of fish. These are catch of the day. The very far right, the fish there in the corner, those are two large peacock bass, all sorts of fish. Boat full of plecos, and here's just the plecos in the marketplace. And we have barbecue pleco here, grilled pleco, arowana, Oscars. Is Mystery Snail Garden here, or Beck Shoe in here. Apple snails are utilized as food for these people. Tortoise, the land tortoise here, which is a threatened species, is found very easily in the marketplace. These are turtle eggs from the Caracaia, which is the aquatic turtle that is endangered, but still the eggs are taken by the millions every year to feed the people. They love turtle eggs, as well as pink dolphins. Pink dolphins are part of our food for some people. One of the problems with pink dolphins they've found also is they have high levels of mercury now because they're at the very top of the food chain there in the Amazon. But people will eat them. The aquarium trade is a high extraction market as well. If we look at Peru's ornamental fish exportation, most of the stuff that is exported out of South America actually is going into Europe. The Europeans pay high dollar for fish. You know, Americans think we pay a lot for fish, but if you talk to the Europeans, especially the Germans will pay high top dollar for fish in that are wild caught in South America, especially the rarer fishes, as well as Japan. Japan pays top dollar for fish as well. If we look at actually the numbers of fishes that are being exported, this is exportation numbers from, I think, 5 years ago out of Peru. You can see the numbers that are being exported out. The highest is occurring in September. That is the very end of the dry season in Peru. Over 2 million fish. So total, there's about 7.7 million fish being exported out of Peru per year. That amounts to about $4.8 million of revenue from those fish. Now, most of that revenue stays with the exporters. Probably 10% or less goes out to the fishermen. And we're talking, probably 100,000, 200,000 fishermen in the area of without all over Peru that are sharing in just a small amount of profit from those fish. And lastly, global climate change has affected the environment and the fish in the Amazon. Global climate change is just not the fact that we're going to have a change in temperatures, but what it's happening there is a change in the patterns of precipitation. There's going to be an increase in ocean levels, which will lead to coastal flooding. So Eduardo, there in Florida, hasta la vista, baby. And if you think about it, the Amazon basin is almost at sea level. Iquitos has an elevation of 67 feet, and that's at the very, near the headwaters of the Amazon. You imagine what it is in Brazil, right at sea level, or maybe 4 or 5 feet above sea level. There has been some major droughts that have occurred in the Amazon. This is from 2010. 2010, they had the 100-year drought throughout the Amazon. And this made big news all over the world. It happened throughout the Amazon, just not Brazil, but in Peru as well. I was in Peru at the time it happened. And I was there during the rainy season. Well, there was no rain in the rainy season. Parts of the rivers that should have been 40 feet above the, inundated with water up to 40 feet had no water in it whatsoever. This is one of the, this is part of the Itaya River. The water should be up in the outer bank there, should have been past that point, but the water was trickling very little through the Itaya River at that time. And so this is some of the other areas within the Itaya, no water whatsoever. The next year, they had the complete opposite. They had massive floods occur throughout South America. This picture is actually from Colombia. The small river that ran, the small creek that ran through this village, completely flooded. It flooded through villages, went through the forest, piled up all the trees into these towns, inundated the houses with mud. And so from one year to the next, they had a complete change in their weather patterns. So it's these pulses of dryness, these pulses of wet years that are causing dramatic problems for the environment in Peru and throughout the Amazon basin. So hopefully we will be able to rectify some of these problems. That's what we're trying to do at the Amazon Research Center, rectifying some of the overfishing problems, overexploitation problems, teaching the fishermen how to breed their own fish. We are taking applications for internships for this summer and for throughout the year. So if you're interested in, or if you know any students who are interested in internships or volunteerships, please have them go to our website, amazonresearchcenter.org, for an application. Or if you want to learn more about what we do, please feel free to go to our website and read more about it. And with that, I would like to say thank you very much. Muchas gracias, everyone, for showing up to the live stream. If there's any questions, please feel free to ask again uh, with the hashtag or put at Amazon Research Center for Ornamental Fishes so I can see it. Doesn't look like right now there are any, but I'll give everybody a couple minutes before we go to see if there are any questions. If there's not any questions, just, as you leave the stream, if you hit the like button, I'd appreciate that. Makes me feel like what I'm doing is worthwhile. If I don't get many likes on the way out or the way in, who knows what's going to happen. I have never eaten dolphin, so I don't know what dolphin tastes like. I mostly eat chicken. We do eat some fish, but mostly chicken. The fish, though, doesn't taste fishy, not like marine fish. I do like Arapima. It's a very nice, meaty, thick, steak-like fish. So it holds up well to all sorts of cooking methods. But again, Arapima is being raised on a farm, so it's not like we're going out and exploiting the environment to get those. Dwayne asked, is there any way to make the profits from fish catching there go mostly to the fishermen? They are doing more. They have now developed fishing unions that are trying to work more closely with the exporters and not having to go through intermediaries. Most fish, the fishermen don't sell directly to the exporters per se. They go through a middleman, and the middleman then collects all the fish from the surrounding areas and then takes them to the exporters. In Iquitos, if the fishermen live within the city and don't live way out in the villages, 10, 20, 40 kilometers away, where they take a small canoe, it may take them a couple days to get in. The fishermen within Iquitos do have the ability to sell directly to the exporters. So it does cut down one extra step in that transfer of funds. So they tend to get a much higher price for their fish. Instead of, a penny a fish, they may get 5 cents a fish, but that's 5 times the cost. When we work directly with the fishermen, and we actually buy fish directly from the fishermen for the public aquarium. So it's, in some cases where we're going out and collecting specific fish for ourselves, but if it's fish that we know we cannot get, we will actually contact the fishermen and buy the fish from the fishermen. Elishon asked, does Peru have any type of black-white list for fish species? They do, in a sense. One of the laws is that it's illegal to sell fish in the aquarium industry that are considered food fish. They have eased up on that with, let's say, arowana, Oscars. But one of the group of fish that they have not eased up on are the Tigrinus catfish. Tigrinus catfish are illegal to export out of Peru. They are a food fish. There have been in the past where they have allowed exportation of a limited number of Tigrinus catfish, but in the past 5 years, they have not allowed any exportation of Tigrinus or Gerensis cat or Piariba, the sultan cat, the large, Brachyplatystomata cat out of Peru. But you can still find them. Black market is alive and well, but those are actually illegal to export out. Green Thumb Aquariums asks, is there real? I just lost it. Is there real value to habitat environments to have aquariums keep fish that are extinct in the wild? We're just trying to make ourselves feel better. There is value. It keeps the species alive. Potentially, if if we do what really needs to be done, potentially we could help establish populations back in the wild like they've done with the Goodeids. It's harder with other fish, but that's always a potential. It's a genetic reserve, so to speak, for these fish. It does make us feel better, but it also does keep the species alive. It's not totally extinct. What are some of the regulations that have been successful? I can read your comments in live stream, Eduardo, so it's no problem. Really, the only regulations that have been successful are these restrictions on exportations. Like I said last week's stream, we got regulation passed by the local authorities that said that you cannot use blue gourami for a food item for Arapima farms. In other words, throwing in gourami into the ponds, so they will breed in the ponds, and you'll have a ready-made food source for these Arapimas. There is a regulation that says they cannot do that, but again, a regulation is only as good as it's being enforced, and that regulation is not being enforced now. And that's one of the problems that we have, is that there's not much money going into enforcement. These fish farmers are a very powerful bloc. They bring in lots of money to the local economy. Right now, they don't see conservation bringing in as much money to the economy. Even though ecotourism is strong in Peru, the fishermen, the fish farmers bring in a lot more money. And when you have a economy that is really a bad economy, especially in Iquitos, you want to keep those economies that are strong and bring in money. You want to keep them strong. You don't want to do anything that will hurt those economies. Yep. There are plenty of reintroduction programs that have had some success. And we are working on that. We are working with the red pencil fish. We're doing that with Pistogramma altotepici. And so we are trying those processes ourselves to see if it can be successful there in Iquitos. So Jennifer Weaver says, I have seen fishing resorts in Southeast Asia that stock ponds with monster game fish, the Arapima, others. Have you seen these in South America? You actually see these in Brazil. There are some resorts in Brazil that will stock the large pacus, the large red-tailed catfish. Not necessarily Arapima, but it's more of the other sport fish that we see. Yes, I've seen shows that in Thailand where they have 50, 60 pound red-tailed catfish, 30, 40 pound pacu, and the Arapima. But you also see those in the natural environments there in Thailand and Southeast Asia. So they're having problems, just like they are in other parts of the world with invasive species. Let's see. Eduardo wants to know successful. Regulations. Eduardo, and everybody repeated Eduardo's question. Even though I can see him, it's strange. I can see Eduardo's chats on my iPad, but not on my computer. So, Eduardo, it shows that I don't have you blocked on YouTube. It's just something strange in my laptop. Nano Aquarium Guy, Amazon Research Center, not related to your topic complete, but it's true that one cannot import shrimp or crawfish from Peru. Nope, that is false. No crawfish in Peru, but there are shrimp. They are some of the mini macrobranchium shrimp, then some of the Popeye shrimp, which are about an inch long, are seen on many exporters list. The problem is there's not much demand. So if you do know an exporter in Peru and you want to import some of those shrimp, all you have to do is ask the exporter, and they will catch them for you. And so I've imported them on a couple occasions. So they are there. They do import them, or they do export them. It's just not an item that most people want to import because of the Cardina, Neocardina shrimp are so much more colorful. S wants to know which companies or countries' sustainability efforts do you think are making the most impacts? In South America, their sustainability is not the number one effort going on. You know, it's normally just these NGOs, these non-governmental organizations, such as Amazon Research Center there in Peru, looking at sustainability, Project Piaba in Brazil with Cardinal Tetras. You know, the government is starting to realize that sustainability is important because the fishermen are starting to complain that their fish are gone. You know, they've been the cause of the problem, but they see now that they need to change. And so, you know, it's going to become more and more of an effort for these fishermen to catch these fish. So they see conservation as the way to go. But, you know, it's probably the country that stands out the most is Costa Rica, but Costa Rica's had a long history after they raped and pillaged their environment to conservation. And so they came together as a country and said, we need to do something to conserve our environment. And they have become the model of ecotourism, the model of conservation within Central and South America. But it wasn't always that way. They came to the realization after they started development, after they started raping and pillaging their environment. They just stopped and changed. So that's really been the model of success within the area. Dwayne Kitchell said, one of the things that I noticed collecting the Rio Madre Dios area was an utter lack of snails. Is this something that is Amazon wide? You know, the snails tend to be found, like apple snails, tend to be found in the backwaters, not in the rivers, not in the streams themselves. They like the backwaters of the waterways. And it could be because of the heavy metals that are going on in there, killing the snails. I've never been in that region. I've only been in the Iquitos region and into Colombia and Leticia. But it's true in both areas. The only place we find snails are in the backwater. You do find other invertebrates. There are some freshwater mussels that you find in the main part of the river. Since they're filter feeding, they're gonna need all all that water flow, but the snails are going to be found only in the backwater areas. Do you think the Fark and the Shining Path ironically preserved a lot of regions that could have that yet to be explored? Yes and no, Alex. One of the things that's happening with both the Fark and the Shining Path, to finance their movements, they went into the cocaine production, and cocaine production use a lot of the forest area. So they didn't allow exploration into those areas. I'm sure they have helped preserve some parts, but a lot of that area was used for cocaine production. And so, maybe it's a wash. Maybe their habitat destruction led to some extinctions, but they also prevented exploration into those areas for further exploitation by fishermen, by oil companies, by other industries that would have destroyed the environment totally. So it's really hard to say. Some of those areas are opening up, and some of these areas they are finding new species, but it's there are still areas that are controlled by the Fark, even though the Fark and the Shining Path have drawn down. There's a ceasefire, so to speak, but there's some areas that are still controlled by those organizations. Okay, Eduardo, do you believe that by major progress the center has created is awareness and how that can be exploited to expand the center's spread? Yeah, that's our main goal to begin with is awareness. Our education program with the kids hopefully will spread as those kids get older, and they'll become more cognizant of what's going on in their environment and what they are doing in their environment. So that's how you change the hearts of the older people, is to get to the kids. And so we hope that it will cause our message to expand into the greater population. And so we're just starting. Hopefully in a few years we'll see a positive change. We're already seeing a positive change in the little village that we're at. And so we hope that message will spread to Iquitos in the greater city of Iquitos. Alex said, I just read that Colombia had a few states that no one was able to enter for scientific standpoint open the last 2 years. I wonder if the cocaine growth and processing or U.S. defoliate. Yeah, I'm sure that is pretty bad. I'm not sure really what to make of that. Let's see. I thought I saw another one from Eduardo. What can we do? Eduardo, what you can do, what Aquarius can do, is just make your local fish stores, make your local exporters, importers just aware of these issues. One of my strongest issues I have against the pet trade here in America is bringing in potential monster fish that would cause, monster fish that don't belong in the trade. Red-tailed catfish, beautiful cute little fish, but within 5 or 6 years, that fish can't be handled by most aquarists. So what do you do with these fish? Pacus, going to outgrow your system. So there's a lot of fish that just don't belong in the pet trade under most circumstances. I would like to see fewer of those fish get into the hands of hobbyists. Granted, most fish in most hobbyist hands last no more than a year. But there are plenty of red-tailed catfish out there that people don't know what to do with. Not all of us have the Ohio fish rescue out there to take our fish. And so we need to be aware, we need to be cognizant of those fish that actually don't belong in the hobby. And, that's the message I take to my local fish stores here. And, they're trying to do a better job, but there's still a demand for those fish. So, that's one thing I'd like to see changed um, in our trade, in our fish trade here in America. So, any other questions? I guess not. Ooh, I went overboard and went over today by a few minutes. I want to thank you all for showing up today. Again, hit the like button or dislike button, whatever. It's a free world. Please comment. Please share all you can. Again, if you know anybody who's interested in an internship or a volunteership for the summer or fall into the spring of next year, please have them get a hold of me or go to our website and fill out we have an application on our website that comes directly to me after you submit it, and we will get back to you. If you have any other questions that you have, please feel free to get a hold of me at just putting my email address in there, amaze@amazonresearchcenter.org. For any questions or comments, please feel free to email me at any time and I will get back to you hopefully soon. Again, thank you very much for everybody showing up today. I appreciate the questions and appreciate the comments. Be safe. Do your water changes. And do good to your fish. I guess, Dr. Anthony, one last question. I was wondering if environmental DNA or locate species specific rivers. You could, we're doing environmental DNA work right now in Peru to look at species ranges, especially for the red pencil fish. But one of the problems that we have is, there used to be a lot of illegal smuggling from Brazilian fish into Peru. That has been stopped. It's now illegal. And so, I don't know if environmental DNA or mitochondrial DNA would do much for there. It's expensive for those countries to do that. But, that is one way. And Peppers Kruger, I'm glad you did your water change this morning, Jack. I'm proud of you. That, just so you know, Pepper Kruger is my grandson, Jack. He was the one who was in the photo helping me change out my tank. That was probably 10, 15 years ago. He is now a junior in college. So glad you're here, Jack. Glad to see you here. Yeah. So again, everybody, have a great day. Be safe. Hug your family. Hug your fish. Do a water change now and then. Your fish will be happy. Thank you very much.